So in Substance Painter, what I'm going to do is after close, I'll just say File, Open. That is going to create a new project. I will select my vase geometry that is on my desktop. That is going to be my low polygonal version. And I'm also going to load my color map, this one. And I'm just going to hit OK. So after a second of thinking, it's going to load my shield. There's nothing like really special or like significant right now because that is just my base mesh. I get to turn around and I get to see it, and that's that. But let's go to materials. Inside of materials, I can just say under layers, the material that I want to apply is going to be this gold pure. So just drag and drop it, let it go. And as soon as that, you have something that kind of looks like a metallic component. In Photoshop, I can just give it the color, and well, that's basically it. I can say it's going to be a little bit more reflective. Remember what we did with the earth, that the water was shining. But over here, it's just, yeah, it looks gold. Even I have properties down here. If I say, you know what, make it super rough, it's going to look pretty much like what I will have in Photoshop, just the color and basic lighting. But this is what I had before. Let's go all the way down. No roughness whatsoever. The difference is really clear. This is working with PBR materials, physically based rendering materials. These materials require to have an environment around them. So I can actually change the environment if I just go down here to environments and say, you know what, now I want to work with this thing. Drag and drop, you have a new texture. I can turn around my shield. I can turn around my environment, and you get to see the reflections. Drag and drop this one, and then you get to see how it looks in real environments. So that's neat because if you do skybox for your game, you get to see how this is going to look in your game. Exactly the way that it's going to look in your game, which is really, really cool. I can change the property of metallic to be non-metallic if I want to. I will still see some reflections onto it. And that's really how real life materials work. You'll have something that is either metallic or not metallic, but you don't have something in between. Even though that is the reality, in here I have a slider that's going to be like, I'm partially metallic, which is nothing that you will find in nature. Something is either metallic or not, but there's not something that is kind of metallic. You have something that is metallic that will look kind of metallic if you apply a coat of something on top of it. You know, like let's say you apply glue on top of a metallic polished bar. It's still going to show the part that is behind of it, but as the glue dried up, it's going to be not so clear. So I guess that this is what they are trying to go for with this slider. But truth be told, you can just modify the roughness and that's going to have the same effect. So this value right down here, it's either black or white. But, you know, they gave you a slider, so you can try to use it. Oh, anyways, that is my part right in here. On my texture settings, I will also want to define that I have a couple of maps to work with. I'm going to go with my, under projects, just going to drag and drop this under my select ID map. That's what they call the color mapping here. So with this color map, I'm going to go back to my layers, and I'm just going to remove that gold because that was just a quick example. So I'm going to go back to my materials, and I'm going to say, oh, the Hylian shield kind of looks like an aluminum. Drag and drop. Done. Well, this part here in the front kind of looks like aluminum but in blue. All right, so take this guy, Control D, so duplicate it, and then just change the base color. I will say it's gonna be this blue. Hint over here. That's more in the purple side. So this blue. Great. But now everything is blue. This kind of works like layers in Photoshop, so that's neat because I get to say apply a new mask. Like in Photoshop, the same concept, mask. In this case, black means it's not applied. White means apply it. So I can paint on top of my shield and see the information is coming through. I can actually just modify the property that is going to give me the alpha. So if I go here to alphas, I get to say something like, oh, it would be really cool if I had this thing engraved on my Hylian shield. So click, and then there you go. You just pass it through. This is something that you can do in Photoshop, but it's going to take a while because you need to make the mask, and then you need to paint the layer and whatnot. So everything that's happening here is in real life, and also you get to see like what the reflection is going to be in the background. And I get to paint this part and whatnot. But the part that really shines is you can do the color selection. So I'm gonna remove the mask that I added, or if I make it white, I can also make it like remove from it, like that. But I'm gonna remove this mask. I don't wanna work with that mask, so remove mask. I can right click and say apply a mask with color selection. And taking into account that I already have my map, see, I'm gonna go to my 3D and 2D view at the same time. So 3D and the texture space. Get the information from the color map. So now I have a blue part. How hard was that in Photoshop? You had to make the color selection, you need to bring in the other color, you have to paint on top of it, and in here is like 2 clicks. Click on the color range and click on the color that you want to select. What else? Under my materials, I want to add the gold pure, so I'm just going to add it here on the top. Once again, right click to add a mask, click on that thing, and it's golden. It's kind of hard to see with this environment map, so I'm just going to change my environment to, let's see, these one here. It's easier to see, but that's really not what I want. And also everything is completely flat, right? It's just the colors what I'm going for. Truth be told, I don't like it. I'm just gonna restart. Like, this sucks. Sure. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer the information from the high poly onto this low poly. So I'm gonna go bake my mesh. I will click this part and say, oh, take the information from my high polygonal sculpture. Now, what I want you to do is map all of the names for the individual groups using high and low. And I'm going to be matching by name. Anti-aliasing, I'm just going to do a 2x2. If I do an x by x, it's going to take more time. It's going to be better, but it's going to take more time, and I don't want to waste that time here. So I'm just going to bake this map. Take a look at what's happening over here. And I'm not going to point on the whiteboard because if I'm recording this, it will make more sense if I just move my mouse. But look at this thing. Look at the details. That's way better than what Maya gave me by default, right? Not only that, in a second, as soon as it's done baking the ambient occlusion map, the eagle is just going to be really standing out. So it's taking its time because of the 2x. There you go. Do you see the eagle now? It's really well defined. It's taking something else in account, some textures that I will not explain for the purpose of the class because they go way beyond this scope, but some of them are the normal, the world normal map, the curvature map, so where my shape is changing directions, so everything is flat, all of a sudden it turns like this, that information gets saved into a map. What else? The ambient occlusion is really just applied here. This is what my ambient occlusion is going to give me. Position map, thickness, how thick is my shape. It's basically, I think it's doing voxelization under the hood. But now that I have this part, I want to redefine my ID because it's also going to take the vertex color in account, and Maya doesn't work with vertex color. Substance Painter, ZBrush does, but Maya doesn't. So I'm going to reattach my color ID here because everything is black if I don't. Now I'm going to go back to my layers and I'm going to apply smart materials. What smart materials are, they're just going to be taking in account the normals, the roughness, and everything that I just extracted from this information. So instead of just the aluminum, let's work with, I have a steel thing, a steel material here, steel. So drag and drop, steel. Looks way better than it did before. Notice that this information here is just faked. If I turn around, everything is flat. But the normal map is going to be faking out how the light is going to be reflected off a particular pixel. So it looks this neat. I will apply the gold armor right on top, but now I'm going to filter that with a color selection. So mask with color selection, this yellow. So looks way better than what it did before, right? Let's make the aluminum, but instead of making this red aluminum, I'll put it here on the top. Just gonna put it down. Instead of having this red aluminum, I'm just gonna play with the properties of the aluminum. This is going to be blue. Okay, and then I will apply a mask with color selection. Apply on this part. There's a painted steel. I'm just gonna use that. I'm gonna put it right here on the top, and I will apply that with color selection again. So apply with this color selection. Okay, and then I'm gonna go here and I'll say I want a wood texture. I love this wood. It doesn't really match the back of the shield, but I like it. Look what it looks like from the front. It's just pretty. And I can change where my lines are going. I can do that rotation over here. Oh, that's not the rotation I wanted. Sit on the sharpen. No. The gouge, the noise. Well, I can play with the parameters here. I don't want to dwell that deep into it right now. I can rotate the shape. Oh, never mind. Control E. But I'm just gonna filter it. I'll play with it later. Mask with color selection. I'll select this part. What else? Leather. There's a leather thing in here. And I can make my own materials if I want to. Leather fine. There. So everything is in leather with color selection. Oh, I click on the wrong one here. So just with that, I have this lovely texture that is way better than what I did in 1 hour in Photoshop last class. Okay, this is like a 5-minute thing versus an hour kind of deal. But that is not the only thing that this software shines for. I will make a new layer, so not layer, folder. So I can just put everything in here. I'm gonna call it base color. It shouldn't really be base color because it's not really a color. It's a conjunction of multiple things, but it's just in this folder. I'm gonna make another folder and I'm gonna put it here on the top. And this is going to be my, let's call it details. This smart material is going to simulate that I have, let me make a 3D view, that I have a machinery. It's actually called machinery. So I'm just gonna drag and drop it, and it is going to say, well, if this is the bottom of my shape, and this is the bottom of every single part, this is where rust will start accumulating. So if I zoom in, you get to see all of those parts of the rust. They're underneath other things. It's like water will accumulate on these areas. That's where rust is gonna start forming. Let's show it from behind. And I can even take that part out, that yellow, that base color. So that is going to be on my metal base. Just remove that part. There you go. And I can enable it. I can add the two together. Okay? But really, machinery is just a really quick example I wanted to show. That's not what I want to go with. There is another material that is not going to be a smart material. It's just going to be a regular material that I want to work with. And let's see. Artificial leather is fine. So I'm going to take this part here. I'm going to drag and drop it on the top. And what I want to work with in this one is I'm going to remove the height and I'm going to remove the roughness. So this is just a basic material. I will change the color to red and everything is right on top of it. It seems like it's a plastic coat that they did on top of everything. See, because it's actually following the normal map and everything as well. All right, but what I want to work with is the normal map, not really the height map. And I should have some textures here. Procedurals, do I have something normal map related? Let's go with skin like, no. I need textures. These are hard surfaces. Let me just find that. Well, I guess I'm gonna work with a height instead of a normal map. But I'm gonna take that height and I can apply anything to that height and it's gonna be repeated in a pattern, right? So I'm gonna take this hexagon and I'm gonna put it on the height. So put it here and see the hexagon itself is getting into that shape and it's raising the surface. So I can also modify the properties of that thing, make it smaller, make it larger, can rotate it, I can make an offset, I can do a lot of things, but that is not the one that I'm looking for. Let's go with this one, plasma. So I'm gonna put that here. And I'm gonna reduce the scale so it's kind of larger. And what I'm going for is kind of a blood kind of feeling, right? Like I bash this Hylian shield in the head of a bokoblin, and then it's covered in blood. And then Link is like disgusted by this. It's like, this is gross. And also it wouldn't make sense to have it in the back because it's like, what did it do to the poor bokoblin, right? It should be just on the front. So I need to get this out of the way. What I'm going to do here is, as I have this artificial leather, I will just rename this to blood. And I will make a copy because I'm going to be using that in a second, but I'm going to work with this copy. I'm going to apply a black mask, so nothing is applied to this. And I'm going to change my view to 2 and 3D view, 2D and 3D view. In here, my selection is going to be by, where is that? Yeah, by polygon, sorry. And I'm gonna say, well, you applied it in this area because that's the front. Maybe a little bit in these ones because I mean it makes sense. Let me make these lower, and I'm gonna change my alpha. That doesn't look like a blood stain, so maybe here. And the blood itself is just taking out the details. See, it's going in. It should be going out. But I can play with those details later. That is basically where I have my blood, right? So this is pretty hard here. Let's go back to my blood base and my. Oh, that's on the brush. I don't want to work on the brush. I want to work on the actual. There you go. And my roughness and metallic are fine. It's just this one is really, really rough. Maybe reduce the balance a little bit. Something like that. I mean, I can play with the parameters all day long, but for now it's just like that. Now, I have this black mask, right? If I want to, I can paint on top of it. I can just say, I'm gonna paint on my brush, but now I'm gonna be removing it. I'm gonna press X so I can change it to black. And then it's just like, oh, this is gross. I'm gonna be cleaning off my shield because grossness. Do you remember all the other maps that I said it was baking in the background? They are telling me where this object is located relative to the world. So they have another really cool tool that is called particles. So I cannot imagine Link cleaning this thing by hand. I guess he will just like pour a hose to it, just water shooting to it. So let's simulate that. Liquid stream, clean my shield for me, please. And that is going to give me a more realistic approach. Water seems to be flowing into this part. But not only that, do you remember that this is completely flat? Like if I go from the side, this is flat. Also, this is like acid blood. Look at this. It's chipping out the shield. Yeah, the normal is not, it is not that great, but it is what it is. All right, so I'm gonna take this and look at how I'm shooting this. But it's also following the Triforce. Do you see that? It's following the flow of the actual normal map. That's something is not in the base mesh, but in the high map. The reason I duplicated these is because I want to show you the other procedurals. That one was going down, but I can have it going up. Why are you doing this? Oh, I have the wrong thing selected. So apply a white mask and then just paint this burning up. I can do it in here or in here, but notice that it's following the texture. Even though it's supposed to go up like this, it's fire, smoke goes up, in here is going to the right, and that is because it knows what right and up means on the texture because of the space that it baked, the normal in space. So that's a burn. I have a feel effect. It's just like I put it in here and now it's going like ripples. I have a leaks that is going to get concentrated on some areas. I have something more organic. I like this one. It's interesting. I want to work with something that kind of looks like veins. So sure, veins. So it's more vein-like than the organic one. I want to work with, let's say, a broken glass. This one is more like for, it's more for like small clicks, like you shoot through a glass. But fracture works more for the lines that I was going for. So this one looks like it was paint, that it got super dry and now chipped up all the way. So those are the kind of things. Oh, it's going now even to the front. Do you see that? So those are the kind of effects that you can get in Substance Painter. This is like the tip of the iceberg, right? This is just like a quick, super dull introduction of what Substance Painter can do for you. So I'm gonna just stop this part here, except that I forgot to show you how to export. I will go to File and say Export my textures. Where do you want them? I want them on my desktop, of course, where all the important stuff go. Export to my desktop. So go there. It's running those things, and it's going to combine the metallic, the roughness, and the occlusion in a single map that I like to call ORM. So occlusion, roughness, and metallic. This looks pink-ish sometimes. That is because the red channel is the ambient occlusion, the green channel is the roughness, and the blue channel is the metallic. So you can get to separate that inside of Photoshop if you want to, or if you're bringing these to Unreal Engine, then it's gonna separate it for you just by selecting the individual tabs. Base color, it's basically this, because I exported it like that. And my normal map is gonna look like this. So the normals that I have underneath, plus this thing. That looks awful. This one would have been better, so I'm just gonna export this one. Export textures, export once again. And it's gonna look like this now. So this one, and this one. That's for another class. But do you remember there is a component of exporting it to Sketchfab as well? That part of the homework assignment is export this to a website, whether it's Sketchfab or Pre-3D. Well, this software can export it directly from here. I can just say export this texture and export it to Sketchfab. Then export. It's gonna ask me my credentials. I'm not gonna log in, but I'll show you the version. It will basically just come like this in here. It will zip it up and put it in there. So that's the Highland Shield after I exported it, and I tweaked a little of the details. This is the Highland Shield that I did with a little bit of dust, corrosion, and I didn't do a great job on this one because look at this corrosion is growing on the wood. That doesn't happen in real life, but looks cool. At this from here it looks like dirt, so I'm fine with it. What's up?
Are the glow effects that were on like Keyblade or whatever also something you can do in Substance Painter?
The what effects?
The glowing effects on the master key.
Oh, so yes, that's something else you can do in Substance. If I maximize this one, I'll show you what he means with that. So this glow effect is a glow mask. So this map is just an emission mask. And this one down here is going to be an alpha mask. But for those materials that you need to do some separate passes, and they are separate actually from this whole mesh. So different materials. What's up?
Like, can you make scratches in the metal?